Welcome back, everyone. This week we're going deep on some intriguing sources you sent, productive group discussions, interpreting sonnets, and editorial cartoons.
Interesting combo, right?
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, they might seem like totally different things, but something tells me we'll find some cool connections as we go,
Right.
like those hidden threads of meaning. Luckily, I've got our expert here to guide us.
Happy to be here.
Let's kick things off with group discussions. We've all been in those, haven't we? Where it feels like, I don't know, just talking in circles or just straight up arguments. Super frustrating.
Totally. But there's a real skill to having a productive discussion, you know? It's not about like winning or shutting people down.
Right.
It's about building on each other's ideas.
Collaborating.
Exactly. Respecting different perspectives. And hopefully you come out understanding more than you did going in.
One source really stressed preparing beforehand, especially for formal discussions. They even had this thing called the triangulation principle for research. Ever heard of that?
hmm Oh, yeah, the triangulation principle. It's super helpful.
Okay, so what is it?
Basically, it means you should find info from at least 3 different sources. Good ones, reliable, to back up what you're saying, like independent sources.
Not just like your buddy told you something, right?
Right. So let's say you're talking about social media's impact on mental health. Big topic these days.
Huge.
And you're arguing that too much social media can lead to anxiety or depression. To back that up, you could find like a psychologist who studies that.
Makes sense.
And then maybe a sociologist looking at those big social trends and how they affect us. And even a data scientist, someone crunching numbers on like user behavior online.
Wow. Okay, suddenly triangulation is making a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it's kind of powerful, right?
Totally. It's like building the solid base for your argument. You're not just floating opinions, you've got the proof.
So beyond research, what else helps us prep for a formal discussion? It's like a mental game too, isn't it? Like almost chess.
You're right. Taking good notes while you're researching, that's huge. So you can easily find your points during the discussion.
Makes sense.
But it's also about predicting what other people might say.
Oh, the counter argument.
Yeah, like what will they bring up? How can you answer those points thoughtfully? Be ready for it?
So it's like thinking 2 steps ahead, knowing their moves, and you've already got your counter strategy.
Exactly. And remember, in these formal settings, facts are your best friend. Opinions are cool, but they gotta have strong evidence behind them to be really convincing.
Okay, so research is done. We've thought about those counter arguments. We've got our facts straight. But what about during the actual discussion itself? How do we stay cool when things get heated? I know I can get flustered.
That's where staying calm and listening carefully become superpowers.
Oh, interesting.
Like, even if you totally disagree with someone, if you stay calm and really listen to them,
Right.
it shows respect.
Yeah.
But it also helps you find weak spots in their argument.
Ah, so you can counter better. I get it. That's tough, though, especially if you feel really strongly.
Definitely takes practice.
But I guess that's the formal part, right?
Yeah.
You got to maintain decorum, use the right language. Even your body language matters.
It all adds up. It shows that you value the discussion itself, even when people disagree.
Makes sense.
And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. If something's unclear, just ask. Don't pretend you get it.
So, like, be a detective. Get to the truth of what they mean. Now, to keep things on track, I imagine the moderator is super important, right? Like the ref in a game.
Oh, absolutely. The moderator's there to keep the conversation flowing, make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, and most importantly, keep it focused and respectful.
So a well-run, formal discussion is like a choreographed dance, maybe? Everyone plays their part, the moderator sets the pace, and the goal is like moving gracefully toward understanding.
I love that analogy.
So let's move from those structured discussions to something more, I don't know, lyrical. Sonnets.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest, those Shakespearean ones can make my head spin.
They can be tricky.
But one source had a pretty practical approach to tackling them.
Oh, good.
First, look up any words you don't know. Don't let the fancy vocabulary scare you off. Then, try summarizing each stanza in your own words, almost like you're translating it.
That's great advice.
Yeah, because by putting it in her own words, we start to see what the author's trying to say. Their message, their tone, even their emotions, right?
Exactly. And don't forget, sonnets often have a shift between the first 8 lines, that's the octave, and the last 6, called the sestet. Paying attention to that can unlock deeper meaning.
So like a build-up in the octave, maybe a question, and then the sestet answers it.
Oh,
It gives a new perspective.
exactly. And there are different types of sonnets like Shakespearean or Petrarchan, but they usually follow that idea. Present, explore, then resolve or reflect.
It's amazing how such a strict form can still have so much nuance.
For sure. And speaking of nuance, let's switch gears to editorial cartoons and satire. They seem simple, maybe just funny drawings, but there's so much more to them.
Right. One source called them cleverly crafted arguments disguised as humor.
I like that.
It's not just about laughs, it's about making you think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Editorial cartoons use satire to get their point across. They use imagery, symbols, analogies, and of course, irony. It's all about exposing a problem or hypocrisy or just making a point that really sticks with you.
Like that example from our source. A giant elephant crushing people, representing corporate greed.
Powerful.
Real impactful. Words might not hit as hard as that image.
Visuals are strong. They cut through all the noise and make you feel something immediately, so the message has more impact.
And then there's irony, playing with expectations versus reality.
Oh, irony is crucial for satire. It lets them highlight contradictions, challenge what we think we know, and make us question things we took for granted.
Right. Like one source gave this example, preparing for a flood, but then an earthquake hits instead.
Ugh.
It shows how we can get so focused on one thing that we miss the bigger picture or those unexpected turns life takes.
Exactly. Irony reveals those unexpected realities and makes us rethink what we assume about the world.
So, with editorial cartoons, we should ask, what's the message? How are they using irony or satire? And is this cartoon trying to change my mind about something?
Yes, it's about engaging deeply, getting the techniques they're using, and then forming your own informed opinion.
It's amazing how much they can say with, like, one drawing.
Right, it's really about the power of visuals, especially with satire, that sharp wit.
You know, as we're talking, I'm realizing all these topics, formal discussions, sonnets, even cartoons, they're all kind of connected.
How so?
Well, they're all about using specific techniques to communicate well, and I guess to persuade, like to get their point across.
That's true. It's fascinating. Each form has its own, set of rules, its own language almost,
Right.
to achieve a specific goal.
Okay.
Building a strong argument with good sources, like we talked about.
Oh.
Or a sonnet with its rhyme scheme to make you feel something. Or satire to challenge your ideas and start a debate. It's all intentional, crafted to have an impact.
So each one has its own toolbox, and the expert communicator knows which tools to use.
Exactly. And once you start seeing those tools, those techniques, you see them everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
News articles, ads, even just chatting with friends and family.
It's like becoming aware of how we're constantly being persuaded.
Right. But it's not just being critical, it's also appreciating the skill behind it.
True.
A good argument, intellectually, that's satisfying. A beautiful sonnet, it can move you deeply. And a thought-provoking cartoon, it makes you question and see the world differently.
They make us laugh, think, question, and hopefully be more informed.
Couldn't have said it better.
You know, with all this talk about techniques, have you ever noticed how one powerful image or the right phrase can totally change your view on something?
Oh, all the time. Think of those iconic images, the ones that made history. The flag raising at Iwo Jima, the girl running from napalm in Vietnam, the man in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square. They went beyond language and spoke to everyone.
Powerful stuff. It reminds you that communication is not just words, it's connecting with people emotionally, sparking their imagination.
Speaking of powerful, let's go back to sonnets for a sec. We talked structure, rhymes, but let's dig into the words themselves, that language. Have you ever, read a poem or song lyric that just perfectly captured a feeling you couldn't describe?
All the time. There's something magical about how words can transport you, make you feel understood.
Right. Sonnets, with their imagery, metaphors, the careful word choices, they're masters of that. Take Shakespeare's Sonnet 18. It starts, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" Right away, boom, a metaphor. Comparing someone to something beautiful, fleeting, setting up the themes of love, beauty, time passing.
And the way he uses language to create these vivid images like rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So visual.
It's like you're right there. And notice how he contrasts summer's short beauty with his beloved's lasting beauty, saying his poem will make her beauty eternal. Eternal summer shall not fade.
He's fighting time with words, preserving love and beauty.
Exactly. Just one example of how sonnets, through their language, explore big themes, evoke emotion, and leave you thinking.
It shows that even within a strict form, you can be so creative and express such depth.
Absolutely. Makes you wonder what other forms of communication are out there that we're not even paying attention to. Or maybe underestimating isn't it? There's always something new to learn, more to find out, like you said, those connections, new ways of looking at the world.
Yeah, and it makes you think, doesn't it? All these layers of meaning and how people are trying to communicate, like it's hidden in plain sight.
Right. And then how do we become better at communicating?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like, how can we use these techniques to, I don't know, express ourselves more clearly, persuade people, maybe inspire change, even just connect better with each other?
Big questions.
Yeah.
Which is what makes this deep dive so interesting, I think. It's not just like, oh, here's how Sonnet works. It's how these things affect us every day. They
Exactly.
change how we think, how we feel, what we do.
It's about recognizing that communication is power. And the more we know about these tools, the better we can communicate ourselves.
So for us, you know, trying to learn and be curious, how do we get better at this? Noticing how communication is happening all around us.
I think the first step is just paying attention, being a better listener and reader, like really noticing how's the language being used? What images are they using? How are they building their argument? What emotions are they trying to make us feel?
Like we're learning to see the code.
Right, exactly. And as you get better at spotting it, you can try those techniques in your own communication. Emails, presentations, even just talking to a friend.
So being more mindful of our words and the effect they have.
Right. But also being open to being persuaded by
Oh,
others,
that's important.
like letting a good argument change your mind, or compelling evidence, or even a moving story.
Because at the end of the day, good communication goes both ways. It's a conversation, sharing ideas, and hopefully understanding each other better.
That's a great way to put it. And I think on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive.
This has been awesome. We've talked about those formal discussions, unlocked the secrets of sonnets, and dug into the power of satire. And we found those connections between them, right? Like it all ties together.
And hopefully we all understand a little better how powerful communication can be and how it shapes everything around us.
So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into anything that sparks your interest.
Because the more we learn about the world and how we talk to each other, the better we can be a part of it and make our own mark.
Beautifully said. And on that inspiring note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy diving.